Welcome back to Paper Labyrinths. I'm Brendan.
I'm Nick.
Our guest this week is a cartoonist, animator, and game developer living in Philadelphia. Before she made the Perfect Tide series, the next installment of which, Perfect Tide Station to Station, is just released, she wrote and drew the webcomic Octopus Pie from 2007 to 2017. Meredith Gran, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You and I and Nick, I think, are all in the throes of having just released a game or are trying to release a game. And so I want to open the discussion with a question that people have been asking since probably like Bible times, I think. How does a game get finished? How does anyone do this?
Well, I haven't finished yet, so I don't know if this will work, but I have the feeling that it is simply a series of compromises. Everyone can come up with not everyone can come up with a great idea, let's be frank, but it is far easier to come up with a great idea than to make the compromises necessary to fulfill it. So I think that's how games get done. That's not necessarily how games are good, but I feel like if you have fine-tuned your compromising muscles, you'll know which areas really need your attention and which ones can kind of fall by the wayside. That is my strategy, at least.
I think this immediately touches on something that I wanted to ask about, because in your Narroscope talk, you talk about the value of improvisation, of knowing how to trust your gut, to relieve room for a good idea, to not design the entire thing right out of the box, and to or not right out of the box, but rather at the very beginning, and then stick to that plan all the way through, which as a game developer, I can tell you is a very, very tempting idea because that controls exactly what it is that you're planning on doing. But as a game developer yourself, how do you, when you're in finishing mode, how do you strike that balance of, here's something that I think would be a really, really good idea if we can pull it off, but we're rapidly approaching the point of no return?
I think what I do is I kind of whittle it down, I classify those improvised ideas, and obviously the most high effort ones, like anything that involves coding, a new UI, new animation, anything like that. It's like, all right, are we more than 6 months out from release? Then maybe. If we are less than that, I feel that writing is always a possibility, especially writing that doesn't then affect other parts of the game. Even like today, I'm still writing the last little bits, and I'm still coming up with some stuff that I think is pretty good. So I have not yet removed that possibility. It's just a matter of what you're trying to fit in.
Yeah, the dependency cost on any given change is something that races through my head whenever someone comes up with an idea, including me, right? Like the idea of how many people are going to have more work to do if I make a change. If I'm the only person whose day I'm ruining with this change, it's a very, very easy decision to make. Nick, do you feel like you have a similar kind of experience of that?
Yeah. It's the compromises. I think the skill, the compromising muscle that you mentioned is to do it without leaving seams, or as little of a seam as possible. Because there's a lot of, I think we've seen a lot of projects you can kind of tell where this was cut away at, which is unfortunate, or just doing something that's thematically still holds together or whatever, by rewriting or undoing something.
It's true. Like when you can look at another project and be like, oh, they ran out of time. Like what you really want is for people to look at your project and be like, how the fuck did they fit all of this in? You want it to feel jam packed, not insufficient.
Yeah, and no one wants to look foolish, and ideally you want to look like what everything was intentional, when really, I don't know, 30% of it was intentional and a lot of it just sort of fell together. And then I don't know, I think people are also depending on their generosity when they're playing a game, will be like, well, this isn't like quite coherent, but I can kind of, put it together in a way that still makes sense, or read it in a way that works. Like I just finished playing Station, and I don't think I could tell where anything was like removed or anything like that.
That's excellent to hear.
So yeah, that might be the best compliment a game developer can give to another game developer. Is like, I couldn't see where it's either one, I don't know how you did that, or two, I couldn't see where you cut anything. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking like a few days before it comes out, and how are you feeling? How are your nerves?
My nerves are actually pretty good at this point. I just I wake up and I do what I have to do, and then I go to bed. Most of my anxiety comes from the fact that my husband and my son are accommodating this right now. I want to spend more time with them. Today is a snow day, and he's out in the snow right now, and I'm pretty sad that I'm not doing that too. But I knew when we got down to these final 10 days or so that there would just be no way that I'd be spending more than, meal times, bedtimes, and whatnot with him. But it really does illuminate how generally family friendly this career choice has been for me. That usually I do find that I have a lot of time for my family, and right now I do not.
Well, we were talking about this very briefly before we hopped on the call, but like, especially as someone who was a big fan of Octopus Pie as it was coming out, there's, I think, unfortunately, the temptation to be like, oh yeah, Meredith Gran, the Octopus Pie comic artist, comic creator rather. But you've been making video games for near on 10 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Does that surprise, or how does that strike you as someone that made like such a big deliberate change in your chosen field and the medium that you were working with? Like, do you feel like you've been doing it for that long? Do you feel like you're right on the cusp of releasing your second major project? How does that feel?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people do recognize me from Octopus Pie, and a lot of the time I'm kind of like this little lingering thing in the back of their mind, like, oh, she's still alive. Like, I feel like anybody who's been making things online for a certain number of years, people do drift away and forget, and then they're almost scandalized to be reminded of you at a certain point because they have personally left that part of their lives behind. I mean,
sure.
that is one kind of person who's like, oh my God, this is what she's up to. And then there are people who have been following the whole time, and they may even be interested in what I'm doing, but they're not really checking it out because it's not Octopus Pie. And that's totally fine. People move on. I do think they would like it, but you cannot,
I also think they would like it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
someday they may come around. The thing with making a video game that, has been a very hopeful thing for me is like, once it's made, it is on the shelf and people can check it out when they're ready. And I think, something like this, particularly games with like a lot of writing and a lot of like meditation on youth and life and love. I feel like these things can be experienced at any point in your life, no matter how old the game is. I really just see this as like as something a bit more timeless than even what Octopus Pie was. I think more capturing the immediacy of the moment, and with
Sure.
this, I'm very much willing to be patient as people get to it in their lives. And then there are a lot of people who've never heard of Octopus Pie who are checking this out for the first time, and then maybe even going back to read the comic. So, when I started on games, I was very ready for a change, and
Sure.
I definitely want to expand my audience beyond the people who were super into webcomics in a certain place and time.
For sure.
I had never considered how, in relative to, I think I see games as very of their time. And like there are, a few I would say are timeless. But you're right that webcomics feel much more of their time. And I don't know why exactly, but that just feels like a sort of a more inherent truth to the form, or maybe the internet itself has changes so quickly that the idea of a webcomic just feels old or older. And I don't know. It's a new thought for me.
Yeah, it could be. I think, the way webcomics kind of ushered in this new phase of like instant feedback for the cartoonist, I think that might contribute to that feeling that it was all happening then.
I think there's definitely a feeling of the way that we engaged with technology at that point. Like we were sort of past the point of dial up. So it was a bit quicker, it was a bit more immediate, but was not so immediate as having the whole internet in your phone at any given point during the day. And so I definitely fell into the rhythm of, oh, I'm going to get online. And once I'm online, I'm going to go through my little chores. And a lot of that would be checking in on the daily strips that I would be engaged with. Right. And so that was always like part of my process for, I need to go on my computer in order to get online in order to do those things. And I think
Yeah.
maybe as people's behaviors have changed, those modes of production have changed. I mean, certainly there's still stuff like webtoons and other stuff like that that are still in the comics space, but certainly less, I think, indie materials.
Yeah, I think that is what has replaced it, because what you're talking about, your chores of visiting all these websites, that didn't seem like a chore at some
No,
point.
yeah, yeah,
Especially if you had like RSS, which is like a technology that has kind of deprecated for no reason, because it feels like it's exactly what social media is doing by aggregating all these websites into one place. Yeah, I mean, people's dependency on websites like Webtoon mean that they're not really as interested in checking out one person's website anymore.
yeah. I mean, another big part of that is I would go to the different websites for each of these different things, or I would check my RSS feed, and a lot of a lot of opportunity to just start your own thing has vanished in the face of people being captured by conglomerations that are like, we're going to be your hub for every webcomic that you want to check out, right?
Yeah, we'll make it easy for you. You don't need to learn HTML or CSS. You can just put it on here and it works,
Right.
which is great. But
Yeah.
same drawbacks as any other prefab technology that you're not supposed to change in any way or have
Exactly.
any control over.
Yeah. There's knowing the tools in your toolbox is such a valuable thing regardless of what your medium is. And I think having the freedom to say, I want to be able to arrange my panels in an atypical way, or I want to add some animation into a strip that wouldn't ordinarily have animation, is something that really gets lost when you move towards something prefabricated like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're beholden to more than than just your audience and yourself. There is a third person in the room, and
Right.
I
Yes.
tend to think that person's bad.
Another thing we were talking about is, Octopus Pie ended, and it ended well. It ended. Another thing I want to talk about is music in visual media, and it ends really, really well in a grand musical finale. And one of the things that I think makes that strip stick in people's minds is not only did it end as opposed to petering out or having its creator have some sort of a weird heel turn in its late career or something like that. But it was something that people are able to like have like a celebratory, like, yes, this ended, and we got what we were hoping for out of it.
Well, thank you for saying so. It was very much like, it was like this big vessel that needed to be landed. And my decision to end the comic came probably like between like 2 and 3 years before I actually did. So it took a very long time to like wrap up these threads and get to the point that I wanted to get to. And during that time and during the years before it, there were forces that threatened to end the comic. I needed to take other jobs. I needed to focus my attention in other places. And at any time, one of those jobs could have become all encompassing and replaced Octopus Pie, just based on basic need. But I was fortunately in a position where Octopus Pie never let me down. Jobs let me down all the time. Jobs would end abruptly. Jobs would have me creating things that I had no ownership over, and ultimately I would go back to this thing I owned. It doesn't pay well, but it does pay. And if I just work at it, I will be able to continue supporting myself for the foreseeable future. And that continued to happen. And it was a series of circumstances in which that was possible. So I think I was very lucky to have the time to do that. I think I was very lucky to be able to grow with the comic. I think a lot of people, they start a webcomic and they abandon it because they change and the comic no longer reflects who they are. And I did that too when I was in college, when I was younger. I started my first webcomic when I was 15 and I abandoned it. And then I started another in college and I abandoned it. So by the time I hit Octopus Pie, I was thinking more about making something that would have the flexibility to change as my preferences changed. And that's part of the reason that the comic kind of became this way, that I was sort of reporting on the scene of like the changes that my life was taking. So I felt like for the entire run of the comic, until the end where I started to feel like it wouldn't be able to do this anymore, it was perfectly compatible with the kind of stories that I wanted to tell. So I had no desire to abandon it. I had a desire to speak through it that entire time. As for why the heel turn happens, I have so many theories about this. I was just talking about this because Scott Adams is like the guy on everybody's mind the last few days. And my theories, which I'm still sort of like assembling from the air, it kind of centers around the idea that there's this large gulf between your everyday working schmo cartoonist and your millionaire cartoonist. There's really not much in between because like stable careers in cartooning have just kind of dropped out. Like the dream of the syndicated comic strip is over. And that means that everybody is either making pennies or massive money. And less so, I would say, even the latter these days. So I think Scott Adams, who was also uniquely untalented in cartooning, probably siphoned himself away from all of his peers at a certain point. Sometimes his fault and sometimes not. To the point where he was like, he was just kind of like this isolated crank. And I think that a lot of cartoonists, whether they achieve success or not, run the risk of becoming an isolated crank because there is no trajectory to just like a good middle class career in comics.
My perception is all of the millionaire comics are like there aren't any new ones really. I'm just forgetting someone very obvious. But
I think there are a few people who kind of make it work at the tippy top of Webtoon. And then, really all of the money in comics right now is in graphic novels, YA
Right.
specifically, which
Right.
is, I think, sort of underreported and underacknowledged by the people in the comics community. But as far as like making a comic strip, a daily strip, and seeing any sort of like money that you can raise a family on is like practically non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm thinking very specifically of people who I know whose work I have seen just skyrocket from like I saw their work on Twitter. They had one thing that I thought was really good, who now have staff secretaries who run their accounts for them because they're busy making multi-million dollar graphic novels.
Oh yeah, I mean the luxury to not engage with that is real, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you have to speak directly to your audience, then you're not making enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. To bring it back around about station to station, you were talking about like work, not sticking jobs, rather not work, but jobs letting you down and not giving you the creative control that you're that you want to be invested in the thing that you're making. As you went from comics into video games, as you said, a very, very deliberate, a very, very considered choice. What kind of things did you decide on? Which kind of things do you prioritize? What kind of things changed as you moved into a new medium?
Well, I think I wouldn't say it was exactly like a measured career change. I think, I wanted to do it, but I think the reason I wanted to do it was because it was somewhat of a leap of faith. Right after I drew Octopus Pie, actually, when I was on that tour where I was like promoting the last book, my husband and I were trying to conceive, and I got pregnant immediately after that tour. And
Congratulations.
thank you. He's going on 8 now, and
Nice.
at the time it was like, well, I'm at a point in my life where I have some stability. I have made something that I'm very satisfied with, and I am about to do something that I have no idea how it's going to go. I have no idea how it's going to affect my work or my creative output or who I am. And I think it's time to do it, because when else am I going to feel like I can take this chance?
Right.
So it was all really a like, let's see how this year goes kind of year, where I decided to do video games. It was, it was a question of whether I wanted to try and move into, say, graphic novels or general purpose freelancing in the comics world, or if I wanted to do something that maybe I had kind of tickled my brain for a few years. And yeah, that just sounded much better to me.
That makes sense. That is to say, I think that's still pretty measured, right? Like a tactical. If I don't take the risk now, when will I ever have the chance to take it again? Right. I think many video games have been started on shakier foundations than that.
I think no one can accidentally make a video game. It's way too much work.
Does anyone accidentally made a video game? Let me find this out.
I can think of more than a few people that pretended to make an accidentally.
Sure. Yes.
One,
that's yeah.
No one
print
who's
the
actually.
legend.
I am so fascinated by people who pretend to make video games. It's
Yeah.
like definitely one of my little pet things that I seek out on the internet is people who just like all through their production timeline, they just are finding new ways to make the project bigger and more unfinishable.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's like gardening, I suppose. Like it's a hobby in itself. Unfortunately, you're bringing along a lot of people who want this game to exist. So
Right.
it doesn't seem very nice.
I think it's different when it's like a hobby is it's the purpose of the hobby is to be pointless, and so it's fine. But when it gets like married to this really orthogonal goal of like releasing a product and selling it and like doing and having all of the aesthetic trappings of releasing a video game becomes very strange and I think almost completely incompatible. But yeah, that's fun.
I count it as a win whenever I can find productive friction to add to a video game that would just by mass market convention resist that friction. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of temptation, I think, to make something as approachable and as easy for someone to get into as humanly possible at the risk of removing the things that make it fun and engaging to be like, no, this is a challenge. I need to get over this challenge. And I think making sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that, like, people play games for stories, and people play games for the immersive experience of being this other thing or being this other person, but also for this feeling of, oh, there's a little puzzle here that I need to solve, and it's up to me to figure that out. And the game will give me tools to do that, but not losing sight of that aspect of it, because I think that can get thrown out with the bathwater a little bit too often.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you do need to like you do need to give in to your impulses a bit and say like this is the thing that excites me right now.
Right.
But then that does need to be grounded in the assurance that this will one day exist and that people other than me are going to play it and understand it.
It's weird. I mean, it's very much the opposite of making compromises to finish something, right? Like I like moving the goalposts at the end of production so that it's like, well, this is actually now done. It wasn't done yesterday, but it's done today, and I didn't do any new work to it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's the best feeling in the world. It's just like drag select something in your notes file and just delete it. But that is not like, that's because I am releasing a product with a budget that I would like to make money so that I can continue making more games, not the hobby. Like when I am sitting down to paint miniatures, I'll give myself more and more and more work, because the whole point is just to sit and paint. It's not like I send a photo to a friend when I'm done and that's it. Like it doesn't go anywhere else. I don't know. I guess it's a shame that I can very clearly think in product terms, but it is useful to keep having a job anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard people say that like the more experience you have with game development, potentially the worse your games can be. I think maybe for that reason, that like the more you do it, the more you think in terms of like, well, this is simply, this is more feasible, so this is what we have to do. That like that experience perhaps dampens your ability to.
I think it's your goals. Your goals start aligning with like sustainability or maintenance or whatever, and then that becomes more market shaped.
For sure.
Probably for the worse.
I have fallen into that trap this past year in particular, as I have strived to like figure out a way to like fit the thing inside the box. I have naturally thought, okay, well, I'm not thinking about how to make the game good. I'm thinking about how to make it box shaped, right? And it has been really, really valuable, I think, to like, to what you were saying before about success and not having peers, right? I think it's really, really valuable. Let me say that over again. To what you were saying before about like the people that wind up being in the 1% and not having peers to like check in on like what it's actually like to make the thing once you find like great success. I think, I haven't had great success, but it has been enormously useful to make sure that I'm checking in not merely with coworkers, but also other developers, other professionals, to say like, hey, what are people interested in? What are people excited about? What are people doing? Not merely in the world of video games. I don't want to make a video game that is inspired by the world of video games. I want to see what people are inspired by creatively throughout all of creation.
Oh, well, I did want to mention, because I think this is like somewhat relevant, but this was like, oh my God, all my stuff is about to fall on me. This is like a testament to how unbox shaped my ideas have been.
Yeah.
I changed
Oh
the
yes, I was
shape.
just looking at this. Yeah.
And like, I will never regret that I did this. I know
It's
that
so
my
good.
literary agent hated it and my publisher hated it, but I think it was the right choice, and there's something you can do about it. If
Yeah.
you think in terms of design, there's always something you can do to accommodate that change. So I don't know.
Will you describe what's on screen for people that are just listening in?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
right.
you're good.
This is not a visual show. So
No.
here I've got my box set of Octopus Pie, literally a box, and the first 3 volumes are wide format. And then the last 2 volumes are tall format, because I decided I didn't want to draw it that way anymore. And I knew that this would come back and bite me at some point. I knew that my readers who bought the books were not going to love it. I knew that comic shop owners were not going to love it. But it just felt right to me. It felt like I was not I was limiting myself by using a format that I used to consider like the standard format for reading things on the web. And when I changed it, I felt that I was able to experiment so much more and do so much more within like kind of the classic comics page format than I was ever able to do before. So no regrets. And yeah, a couple of years ago, I asked my publisher Image to help me make a custom form box that would include the entire series. And it really looks quite nice.
It looks great.
Yeah.
It looks so like it doesn't look intentional because obviously I don't know. It has that like the decision. There's a lot of different decisions here, but it doesn't mean you can't like make it look good anyway.
No. That's for
which is yeah.
that's for the designers to figure out. And I end up being the designer later, so I guess it was up for me to figure out. But I feel like design does need to accommodate the wild ideas as much as possible because, what is the point otherwise?
I mean, that goes to like running your own HTML for your webcomic, right? Like it's more work, but it's not shaped to be on a unified platform or a standardized platform.
And for that matter, no one else's box looks like that, right? If I look at that, I know, that is that specific product, that is that specific piece of art. And there's something exciting about that, I think.
Yeah.
It's playful. And it's like, that, you know what? Like that goes a long way.
Right.
For a lot of like, I think a lot of people get things, especially something physical that is available digitally. Why not have fun with it?
Have a unique object.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a unique object that solves a problem, right? Like to the point you were just talking about before of like the person that pretends to make video games who is basically just yelling at the gardeners, why don't we put some carrots in over here just for the sake of putting carrots in? Like it's not merely a funny box just to have a funny box, right? It is serving a purpose, and that's very valuable, I think. I want to talk about music. There's so much appreciation for music across the work that you do, and it's rendered in such a lively, vivid way. And I wanted to talk to you about like the challenges of like putting in music in, solving for, I can't actually license this particular MP3, or I can put the words down on the page, but I can't guarantee that the player or the reader is gonna have encyclopedic knowledge of the particular song that I'm capturing right at that moment. What goes through your head when you want to put a musical sequence into a visual medium?
I mean, for the most part, what goes through my head is that I want to do it, and then
good.
I kind of work out the rest afterwards.
Valid.
I know that expressing an appreciation of music in your art is inherently a bit alienating, and it is not going to bring absolutely everyone in. But I always seek to bring in as many people as possible with it, and at a certain point, I just have to be like, well, I can't really accommodate beyond that.
Sure. Yeah.
When you say alienating, do you mean just people don't want to listen to something or don't want to like have to construct it, or
I mean,
what exactly?
I think there's something inherently alienating in just being like, here, I've curated some music. Won't you listen, or won't you appreciate with me? I've talked to a lot of people over the years who are just really not interested in that sort of curation, at least not from like, another person.
Wow.
And I've long realized like, putting on music for other people to listen to has very mixed results. So I never want to presume that people are going to be interested in the same music as me or why I'm interested in that music. But that's, that can also be said for every aspect of what I do. I just cannot presume people will like it. I can just offer it to them with my full heart and hope that they do.
Interesting.
That's really, yeah, I would have guessed, I don't know, I guess my reception to that would be very opposite. I mean, there's a moment in Station to Station that is, there's a musical interlude that works incredibly well that I think people are really going to enjoy. And so gosh, I really hope that, I guess what I'm saying is I hope the reaction to that is not one of alienation, because I thought it was delightful.
If I put on a playlist and a guest says, I feel alienated right now, I'm going to leave the room.
Well, they don't say that. They kind of just ignore it, you know?
Oh, sure.
Like, I don't know. I feel like I lived through like the death of the DJ and the death of musical curation. Like, I feel like I don't know what the statistic on this is, but it seems like 99% of people are happy to put on like a Spotify playlist of like cool grooves, and like that is where they get their music, and they're not even really super interested like, what's this song? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just like my perception, but I do feel like it takes a nerd to really care about this stuff to begin with.
I think we're going to bring DJing back. This is my goal.
I would
now.
like
You
that.
specifically.
I mean, I guess this is what I'm trying to do here in
Absolutely.
my own way.
This
Yeah.
is the Paper Labyrinths promise. In 2026, we're bringing back DJs.
All right.
Oh, there's a, I don't know about we, but yeah, sure. I'll just stand up and leave the room.
It's me and
when
Meredith.
Brendan starts
This is a
DJing.
project we're starting
Yeah,
today.
see, but like we're used
Yeah.
to this. We're used to someone
Exactly.
being like, "Oh, I don't care."
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're talking about, you know, curation. I think there's a degree of that in your work that feels, or backing up. I think there's a commonality in your work that feels like there's a feeling I get when I read your work and play your games that I almost feel like, oh, how did she know this about me? This is from the most secret part of my life. How could this experience have possibly been shared by another human being? And it's really, really, I think, striking the degree to which you take elements from your own experience and from the experience of what it was like to be in a very specific place and time, right? And transpose those into the experience of a story, right? It is not one-to-one. It is not exactly, here's what Meredith Gran went to, and you were experiencing it precisely the way that Meredith Gran experienced it.
I hope people don't think that's the case.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But, and similarly, it is not the experience of Brendan MacLeod in that moment, in spite of the fact that Brendan MacLeod is also on a small island on a dial-up modem, trying to figure out what to do with his life. But there are these very, very specific elements that I think really strike to the truth of what it was like to be in a particular time and place, without necessarily being like, and you had to have been there in order to have experienced it in this way, right? And so, like, you know, thinking about what you said about music, about like curating the experience, how do you approach the idea of like, I want to speak specifically about this location, this time, this place, without being a 100% reproduction?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I wish I could put it into words better, because I have been asked this a couple of times, like, how did you know my life? And I would like to come up with a better answer. So maybe I can talk through one here.
In your defense, I just stumbled over my words for 5 minutes, so you can take all the
Yes,
time you want.
it may not be easy to express. You know, I think there is like, you know, people get to the essence of how they felt about something as long as you can just cut down a similar line with it. If you can just get to the idea of feeling a certain way, you know, the way I talked about it when I was discussing this with Chris Plant is that if you know, maybe your sheets didn't smell the same way that I wrote the sheets smelled like, but you remember how the sheets smelled, and hearing that they smelled anyway at all reminds you of that. And I think that may be the key, is that when you get hyper specific with people like that, it invites them to think of their own hyper specific memories, and
Right.
memories that are not necessarily easy to draw out, and memories that I drew out by living with them and thinking about them for an extended period of time. if I was able to make these games quicker, which I'm not, but like there is no way that I could make them more quickly, is what I'm saying, is because I have to live with the feeling of being 18, 19 for 3+ years in order to experience things in my life that help to extract those memories from my subconscious. A lot of these are memories that people don't necessarily want to think about, so they don't. And when you put it in the form of fun, when you put it in the form of something that can be played, it I maybe kind of tricks people into doing it, and they discover that there is actually something funny or amazing or healing or hurtful in a good way about revisiting those memories, and they've realized that they want to revisit those memories. So it's almost like, it's almost like you're watching me do that, and now you want to do it too, because you're realizing like, oh, maybe my life was cool, maybe my life was tragic, hilarious, whatever it was. I had not considered that, like, these memories actually make for a pretty good story. Here it is. And I hear that all the time. Like, streamers will just immediately start talking about their own lives as they play the game. And people feel very free to start bringing these things up when I have kind of given them the opportunity to do so.
And
So
permission, right? Like you,
yeah.
like speaking about those things frankly, and openly in that way. Sorry, I completely stepped on your words there.
Yeah, no, I think that is what it is. People feel like this is like a safe environment for me to do
Right.
this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's really something about the idea of like those sensory triggers that you were talking about, of like, oh, this is a very, very specific like type of memory, a type of thing that grounds it in a particular place and time. I think there's also, particularly with Perfect Tides, there's the narratorial voice, right? Like Mara talks, Mara the protagonist is the character, but there's also the narratorial second person, like, you do these things, you remember these things. And that is diegetically talking about Mara doing those things, but it is not explicitly addressed that way. And so you could read that as the narrator addressing the player as, you are looking forward to seeing Matrix Reloaded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yes. Please go ahead.
You're talking about it takes a long time to make the game because you have to sit and mine, your own memory for the truth or the feeling. But does any of that exist before you started making it? Because I feel like I make very, very different kinds of games, but I'm thinking about the idea for a game years in advance of actually starting it. And so I guess how much is there when you begin, so to speak, if beginning is like when you start writing code in AGS or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I decided to make this sequel within about a day or two of releasing the first game. I released Perfect Tides, and then I went on a weekend in a rental house with my family and a couple of friends. And I was just like watching the reaction there. And I was just like, I think I could make another of these. And I found these today. Like, I have the entire design document that I drew at that house. This is
Hell
all
yeah.
still right. Like, this is all still true to what I thought about on that first week. And when I got home, I wrote the entire outline, and that outline is still true to the story. It is merely all of the details that, the stuff that people who pretend to make games never actually get to. That took me like the next 3 to 4 years to write.
Sure. That's fascinating because I don't think I would ever make a game so directly personal, I suppose. Or so where I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to say like you're recognizable in Mara because I don't know you at all in that way, but like I think people can recognize Mara as a very realistic person with very relatable emotions and decisions and events and so on.
I mean, I kind of feel like people who play the game know things about me that people who know me don't know. It's just that I kind of get to be in charge of knowing which of those things is the truth or not. I mean, it's all the truth.
Sure.
It's all the truth, but whether it really happened or not that particular way, I get to be the arbiter of all of that.
Right.
That's fun. I like that. That feels. I hope that feels powerful in a fun way, and not. I don't know. To me, it would feel too vulnerable. But
I mean, it is, but I'm used to this. Like, I guess I like it.
that's
at this
true.
point.
Yeah, I suppose doing 10 years of Opticus Pi before would prime you for that.
Yeah. So far, no one is mad at me. So, fingers
Hey.
crossed. 10 more years of no one.
You could
being
do
mad
worse
at me.
in games and
Yes.
and webcomics
That's true.
than going that long without someone going weird about it. Gosh, we could talk a lot about the perfect tights or station specifically, but
Yeah, I mean, if you guys
also
want to
wrap
talk
up.
about the spoilers, we could get to that now.
it would be spoiling Brendan completely because
It
I don't
would.
think you've played it at all.
I've played the first couple hours or so.
I can speak somewhat cryptically.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about station specifically as cryptically as you want to. But yeah,
Okay, well, Nick, you'll have
We've
to
talked around it.
You'll have to ask the questions about this then.
okay, gosh. I was not ready to begin directly
You've
asking
got me
questions.
here.
Yeah, I know.
What's Mara's strength score?
Strength, like, all right, what would that translate to in another game? I don't
Great.
know.
You couldn't open the window, so
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
How physically strong is
How
she?
physically?
yeah.
She's
Yeah.
very not strong.
Could she defeat a bear?
Cor-
No, she
Charisma.
doesn't exercise. She's small. She doesn't have any power in that regard. And I think a lot of what I do with the story is kind of like coming out of that fact that she has reached her maximum height. She's not happy about it. And she doesn't really have any physical prowess to speak of. So what does she have? What is she all about? Is kind of a question that comes up. So I think her strength stat being as low as it is quite relevant.
Right.
I think Mara knows she wants to be a writer, and then in almost every other respect has no idea what
Yes.
what she actually wants, which is like, I mean, that's true of me now. So I can't judge. You know?
Yeah, a passion kind of like in the face of all else. It's very easy to like be on that track when you're young, especially when you're in school, where, you know, it would almost seem like this noble thing to like be so obsessed with your work and be so defined by your work. But that means that when she hates her work, she has nothing at all. And like there's nothing to fall back on for her. So that's definitely something that I really like exploring in these games is like, you know, we know she's a writer. For the most part, we aren't really like super interested in like the specifics about her writing. We are interested in like how she manages her life and maybe in the question of whether she's any good or not.
Right.
But other than that, I think it's, you know, it all kind of informs the story, like the sense that like she places so much of her value on this particular passion, but like how does that actually play out in the real world? Because I feel like that's something that's sort of obscured in an age where people are all like kind of carefully curating how their presence and how they're seen. And it's like if somebody makes funny tweets, I'm like, what else is going on there? Like I would say like not like that doesn't tell me anything about this person.
Yeah. Well, it's
yeah.
it's interesting because I found it was a nice. There's a mechanic in the game where you have life experiences and they're grouped under topics, and then you feed those topics into the writing work that Mara does, and that like you're directly saying like living life gives you the ability to write more or better in a kind of like direct way. But I don't know if Mara knows that in a strange way, because it feels like that's something for the player to know.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously Mara is written in a normal way and is upset at things and is not like, she doesn't say like, oh great, because this relationship I had went this way, I have now like am going to be a better writer. She's just upset about it because that's, just how you are. And so I don't know. I feel like with the narration, it feels like very much situating the player in a specific way and Mara in a specific other way. Like, I don't feel like I'm inhabiting Mara as much as a RPG or whatever other game that wants me to be making decisions as a character in a role playing kind of way, which I found like a really fun and unique like line to draw between the two positions.
Yeah, I never really like RPGs where like say the character is silent and doesn't actually express anything of their own unless you do. I feel like the player has to fight against the fact that they're Mara, and that like, at any given time, like there's an X in the top of your screen. Like if you don't want to be Mara, you can leave. But if you want this, then the choices you're given are only choices, your only choice is like between one thing that Mara might think and another thing that she might think. And you get to kind of texture the details of her life, but you don't get to change the character. You are this character and she is you. And you really are like this, by the way.
I find it very relatable in a very college age way of this feeling of, in order to write, I should just write 100% of the time, no matter what. And even though my best friend has just told me, hey, you need to talk to people and learn about the world, otherwise your writing is not going to be any good. Like being like Mara's resistance to that being like, that makes sense, but I really don't want to do that. So what if I didn't?
Yes.
Is very, very like, yeah, I can identify with that for sure.
My remembering, like the way I remember being that age was that people were throwing a lot of advice at me at the time like that, and I was saying yes as an open-minded person. I thank you for this advice. I am very open-minded, but that doesn't mean the advice is in any way applied to anything that I do. And that's like kind of how I see the knowledge levels in this game. You don't have to get them in a particular order, but as the game progresses, you kind of go from, I read it in a book, or this person told me to do this, to I applied something that I heard somewhere by accident. This happened to have relevance in my life, and now I actually understand it. So a deeper understanding of things, I think, in that age just has to come from experience. There is no book or person or an older person who can give you that advice without you having to like run away with it and face plant horribly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the knowledge levels can go down, which is a fun like. And then Mara and the narrator get upset at this in a fourth wall breaking way. But it's also like, yeah, well, this is a mechanic, but it's not a. Life isn't a game. You can misapply things. You can forget stuff. You can take advice the wrong way. So just because you stuck around, it's not experience points to then make strength better. Which is, it's fun. I like it.
I'm glad you do, because I feel like there are going to be a few mechanics freaks who are just like mad at me for that.
I need to win. I need to get all of the numbers to go all the way up.
If those are the first people to get mad at you, then that's honestly
I'll feel fine about it.
Yeah.
Station to Station has really spoken to me in this way of, I'm at the point in my life where I'm romantically fantasizing about what it was like to be in college, when really all I want is to be able to walk places. And really thinking about like, oh, what if I went back to school? But what I want is just to be able to talk to people about books and stuff like that. And I don't need to like not have a living wage or food in my pantry in order to make that happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is hard. Like I agree. Like that there. One of the things that I'm like wistful about being young is just that like you could you could go to an event and be like, you like this? Me too. And like
Yeah.
new friend immediately. And that happened all the time. Sometimes over the weekend, I would make like 5 new best friends. And, obviously now I'm older and I've whittled those down again to real friends.
I've
And real
sculpted them
friends
into
are
people.
Yes, the real friends are very hard to come by. But when you're young, it is so much easier to break the ice. You don't need an excuse. It doesn't feel strange. Everybody is trying to meet everybody. So that is something that like I'm a little nostalgic for, but I'm never really trying to like plant nostalgia in people's minds with these games. They are period pieces, but what I seek to do is really explore that time period and the truth of that time period. I am not looking to implant cozy false memories in people's minds about sitting in the basement with their Nintendos.
That's right. Nick, do you have a late game station to station question you want to ask?
A late game station to station question.
Do you have a boss battle? In
No. Do I have a boss battle?
Yeah.
No. I did get stuck very late on like one ridiculously little thing that I felt stupid for.
Oh, but you got past it?
I did get past it.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
No, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for letting us play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I replayed all of Perfect Tides 1 over this past week and jumped right into the playtest for Station to Station yesterday, and I'm really, really excited to play more of it as soon as we're done here.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys got to play it, and thank you for being interested in what I'm doing.
Always. Do you want
Thank you.
to tell people where people could find it?
Yeah, Perfect Tides. I mean, it'll be on Steam, Itch and GOG on Thursday, and then it will be on Nintendo Switch at a soon to be determined probably Q1 date. So you can find it there. You can go to perfecttides.com if you want to just follow along there. There are many ways to follow along and find out.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.